Well, welcome, California, to the June 14th meeting of the Public Input Design Committee, part of the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. My name is Neil Fornashari, and I will be chairing the meeting today. And the first thing we'll do is I'll call this meeting to order and then ask for roll call, please.
Very well. We'll begin the roll call. Commissioner Ahmad.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Akutagawa. Commissioner Fernandez.
Here.
Commissioner Fornashari.
Here.
Commissioner Sanai.
Here.
And Commissioner Turner.
Here.
You have quorum, Chair.
Wonderful, thank you. So agenda item number 2 was public comment. So if Katie, if you can open up the phone lines for public comment, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. In order to maximize transparency and public participation in our process, the commissioners will be taking public comment by phone. To call in, dial the telephone number provided on the live stream feed. It is 877-853-5247. When prompted, enter the meeting ID number provided on the live stream feed. It is 998-6619-6806 for this meeting. When prompted to enter a participant ID, simply press the pound key. Once you have dialed in, you'll be placed in a queue. To indicate you wish to comment, please press *9. This will raise your hand for the moderator. When it is your turn to speak, you will hear a message that says, "The host would like you to talk," and to press *6 to speak. If you would like to give your name, please state and spell it for the record. You are not required to provide your name to give public comment. Please make sure to mute your computer or live stream audio to prevent any feedback or distortion during your call. Once you are waiting in the queue, be alert for when it is your turn to speak, and again, please turn down the live stream volume. And the committee is taking general public comment at this time, and we do have 2 callers at this time. And I'll start that process. And go ahead, the floor is yours.
Great. Good evening, Commissioners. This is Rosalind Gold with the Naleo Educational Fund. That's ROSALIND, and the last name is Gold. And I just wanted to start by quickly thanking the Commission for what a great job you all did on your first public input hearing and for being so responsive to so many different stakeholders and other people's perspectives on making that hearing as accessible as possible. And we also want to thank you for your commitment to publicizing the importance of obtaining public input. And we'd also note that, yes, we agree that social media is a very powerful tool and one of the tools you have in your arsenal to publicize the importance of getting input. We would just like to uplift one issue regarding the use of social media by commissioners, which is when commissioners repeat the actual content of testimony or the perspectives of people who have provided testimony, it can very inadvertently create the impression that a particular commissioner supports those particular statements or perspectives. That it's not just a matter of repeating what the commission heard or repeating a perspective, but actually that there is support by that commissioner for that particular statement or perspective that was presented. We would just like to ask the Commission to think about this as you are publicizing, which we appreciate very much, publicizing the importance of providing public input, but to think about how those comments are framed and what impact they might have on people who are thinking of testifying in the future. We just want people to feel that they will all be heard, and you're going to be hearing a lot of voices, we may all understand that tweeting is a way of just telling a narrative, but there are some members of the public, especially in this polarized time, that think that tweeting is actually expressing an opinion. So we just wanted to uplift that issue, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gold, for your comment and your thoughts. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and we will have another caller. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Sarah Rohani, and I'm a legal fellow with Asian Americans Advancing Justice in Los Angeles. Asian Americans Advancing Justice is the nation's largest legal and civil rights organization for the AAPI community. And as part of a national coalition, we serve more than 15,000 individuals and organizations annually. Through direct services, impact litigation, and policy advocacy, we support the most vulnerable members of our community while also building a strong voice for civil rights and social justice. I'm calling in regards to group presentations. Previously, the Commission had discussed group presentations as part of the scheduled hearings. We wanted to inquire as to whether the Commission was still considering these group presentations to be an option. It would be helpful for organizations such as ours who are currently engaged in doing trainings and COI workshops to know the Commission's thought process and final decision on group presentations. If it would be helpful, we would be more than happy to provide feedback. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that feedback. I think we're still, I don't think we've come to a final decision on that topic yet, and that's something still under consideration. But we appreciate you bringing that back to us. Thank you.
And that was all our public comment at this time.
Okay. Well, with that, we will close public comment for now. And there will be an opportunity after agenda item 3 to comment on agenda item 3 and then after agenda item 4, there will be an opportunity to comment on agenda item 4 and also provide general public comment. So with that, we will move to agenda item 3, which is debrief discussion on the June 10th COI input meeting. Really interesting meeting, our first input meeting. We got a lot of good feedback and a lot of good engagement with the public. I think it was really interesting and really well done. I thought, it went off exceptionally well. And so to start this discussion, I want to turn it over to Isra, who was the chair for that meeting, and give her an opportunity to share her perspective and thoughts as chair of a given meeting. You're involved in a lot of kind of behind the scenes of what's going on and how the meeting is being set up and prepared. And I think it would be really beneficial for everyone to hear her perspective on it. So Isra, if you would.
Thank you, Neil. And thank you for allowing this space to start off this discussion. First, I just want to congratulate everyone who worked so tirelessly on this meeting and the structure of this meeting. I too feel like it went exceptionally well. And the feedback that I have written and the notes that I have taken are specifically from the perspective of my role as a commissioner and as someone who was helping moderate that meeting. And I'll dive a little bit into what I saw in terms of the inner workings per se, but obviously that expertise lies with Alvaro and the team who were really involved in that fine-tuned detail of the run of show. So first, the public screen. So I also had a separate device open so I could see the meeting that everyone else across California would be seeing. And I noted that on that screen, only the commissioners were visible. So everyone else, that we have in our regular meeting had their cameras turned off. So the public was only seeing commissioners on screen. The speaker, so we had a vision as a commission to allow and somehow make videos for our public commenters and input visible to the commissioners. I personally was like, how are they going to do this? But they did it. Our team made it happen. So on that public screen, you see the speaker, you see the map that the line drawers had put up, you see a timer. So everyone was aware of what time they had remaining in their comment period. And then you also have, what we usually have during all of our meetings, which is the ASL interpreters and so the subtitles. And then when We did open the lines for public comment for those who did not have an appointment. The call-in information was also visible right there on the screen as well. So that to me was very smooth. Christian and the videography team did a really good job of, moving the screen around so that the person who was speaking, the public commenter, whether they chose to have their video on or not, whether they called in from a phone line or from Zoom, that they were the only ones visible on the screen along with the 14 commissioners. So I thought that was great. Something else that I noticed was that, in our typical meetings, in your role as chair, you are keeping an eye out on that attendee list in that Zoom window, right? So we have one eye there to make sure that, we get to all of the public commenters, everyone who's raised their hand. In this particular input meeting, our team is very closely monitoring that attendee list. And this is for several reasons that we, the commission, directed our staff to take into consideration, that being appointments and appointment time slots, making sure that we prioritize those who made appointments for those time blocks to be given that space to speak, as well as folks who may be repeat callers. So allowing folks who are coming in for that first time. So I didn't realize this. I don't know if you all caught the mistake, but I did make a mistake, but our team is so smooth that nobody noticed that I made a mistake. But our team is monitoring that attendee list so we as commissioners don't have to, and so that we can focus on the comments that are coming in. All in all, what I took from that first experience was the level of detail required in planning these COI input meetings. All of the moving piece parts were so well taken care of that as my role as chair and as the moderator for that meeting, my responsibilities were to introduce the meeting, introduce the commission, provide that brief background on the commission, and then from there on out, listen to those callers who came in to give their input, to hear wholeheartedly them sharing where their communities are, and really pouring their heart out to the commission. So I am very, very pleased with the effort that our team put in and in their execution of all of the wishes and demands that we, the commissioners, and as a whole commission expressed to our team, so that I could sit back and really listen to our team, or to Californians and our team. Neil, I'll turn it back over to you.
Oops, sorry about that. Of course, as soon as I turn my mic on, my phone rings. So let's see. I wanted to kind of give Alvaro and Marcy a couple minutes to share their thoughts and observations, and what they thought, what they want to share with us. Really want to hear from the staff's perspective, and so take it away.
So I wanted to share with the commissioners as well as the public what we tried to do is create a repeatable process in creating the script for the June 10th meeting. And so that's kind of the precipice for the rest of the public input meetings. Obviously, there's going to be some adjustments that we make along the way to fine tune what we're doing, but the intent is to have this repeatable process, have a script that each commissioner can pick up and run without having to make too many adjustments. Obviously, as we move forward, we're just trying to fine tune it as much as possible. A couple of the things that really kind of stood out to me from the meeting on Thursday was, we did a lot of planning ahead of time to anticipate a large volume of callers, and we had just the opposite, where we had some dead air time, unfortunately. But we were able to adjust in the first couple of sessions to bring people in on the phone lines. Moving forward, that was the first one, so I anticipate as we move forward, we're going to have a lot more participation. At least that is our hope. And so we may not have as much dead air time moving forward. So we're going to make that adjustment to fill that time, should we have that kind of time, and make sure that that is addressed moving forward with either a video that we play, should we have any dead time. Also, maybe showing a graphic while we're waiting to transition from one caller to another, depending on how much time is available. Working with the line drawers and the videographers, we're fine-tuning the information that we need from the callers to make sure that we're getting that information ahead of time to anticipate what they're going to be providing. It's not a perfect system that we've created, but given that my understanding from the videographer staff, this is the first time that we're actually bringing people in on Zoom. So we are trailblazing in a sense. This is not something that is done on a regular basis. There are a lot of call-ins, but never having brought in the folks to actually visually be available and present at the meeting. So with that, there are some little bugs that we're going to work out. So all in all, I was very proud of the team. And not just talking about the CRC staff, the commission staff, but the line drawers and the videographers, ASL folks. Everybody came together and made this happen. So big appreciation to everybody for all the hard work that they did. I appreciate that very much. And we can get more into the other feedback that was provided by other commissioners, and we'll get into more of that detail. Marcy?
Yeah, and just thank you for that. Also, just highlighting process that as Alvaro noted, looking at this as a repeatable process. So ensuring that information is clear on the website when people are registering for an appointment. Looking at what we can fine tune and make sure that the public is, obtaining all the information they need when they sign up and what the steps are, and updating the appointment form so that it includes, they'll get an email the day before with the sign in information, items like that, and looking at what was created for this meeting, that if there's any tweaking needed for going forward, and that was it. I do also want to highlight, and thank you for commissioners for acknowledging this, a lot of the prep that went into this, several planning calls with our video streaming services and line drawers to kind of run through every scenario we could possibly imagine to make sure that the chair was prepped with, if this should happen, then what? And so really working with Sulma and the field leads also in terms of all the logistical organizing, making sure we're following a similar protocol with, how we're queuing up people who have their appointments, and also providing a speaker order number so that we're tracking as people provide their input.
And you've already had a couple of debriefing sessions with.
Yes, and already we did debrief as staff, and then also debrief with our video streaming services and line drawers, just on more of the logistical side, where there's like on the back end logistics. And so I think this conversation today, if there's other feedback, how we can integrate that into all the logistical planning for in advance of the meeting and then also during the meeting, so that there's clear protocol in place for any changes.
Okay. And then before I open it up to the commissioners for their thoughts, Karin, I'd like to turn it over to you and your team to see, what your thoughts, thoughts, comments, observations.
Yeah, thank you so much. From our perspective, it went incredibly well, and I would like to just echo what Alvaro and Marcy just said. We all worked together incredibly well. Also, thanks to the chairs of the meeting. We really appreciated your collaboration and all of your time in doing run-throughs with us. This was a great start, I thought, for something that really has never been done on this scale remotely. And of course, there are some things that we still need to work out, but overall, I think it was very well received. We thought it went well. And again, you can't overstate the importance of collaborating. And I think it showed. So we're happy, and thank you for sharing the feedback document with us a little while ago. We're very happy to weigh in where we can and explain what we can, and continue, of course, to work with Alvaro and Marcy and Christian on making sure that whatever kinks we experience get worked out. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I don't know if everyone has had a chance to look at the feedback document that was sent over, but I thought we'd kind of open it up at this point to commissioners and commissioner thoughts on how things went, and just where what if there are things we can do to improve it, or whatever your thoughts are, or if everything's just all good. Alicia.
Thank you. And I was able to participate in the debriefing on Friday, so thank you for including me. Just thank you to all the staff and everyone, and Christian and your team and Katie. I mean, and the line drawers. It truly was a great opener, I guess. So season opener. I'm going to stick with the baseball that Katie took us on. Season opener, I think that's what they call it. And what I did is, like, throughout the meeting, I just kind of kept writing notes, as thoughts came in. So I apologize. I think a lot of these comments that are in the document were mine, but I just kind of kept going and going. But my I guess top 3 takeaways in terms of maybe areas that we could improve on. But again, it just went really well. So thank you very much. So it's not that it didn't go well. It's just that we can even improve upon that, which, it's hard to believe. I would, because the transition time was very smooth. Katie and Christian, and I mean, you don't need the 2 minutes. I think we can open up some more time slots possibly, and cut down on that transition time. And plus, as we noticed, many of the callers did not necessarily take the 3 minutes. Many did, but not all of them did. So again, we might want to think of maybe adding more appointments, because then you also have the other end where you have people that sign up for an appointment and then don't show up. So I don't want to say we want to overcommit, but it might not be such a bad idea by overcommitting. And on Friday's meeting, someone mentioned, I can't remember, apparently an individual signed up for each time block. And honestly, we shouldn't have that. They're taking up, the way I see it is they're taking up somebody else's time block. So I'm hoping that we can do something to try to prevent it. Of course, if they give you a different phone number or web address or email address, we won't be able to track it. And I think the main way I would want to address the dead air time, and thank you, Alvaro, for saying dead air time. I just kept saying dead time. So anyway, it was a mental block. We could do a couple of things. One is maybe, after 5 minutes, if we don't have anyone, let's take a 10-minute break, let everybody know we're going to come back in 10 minutes, and then we reassess instead of being live for 10 minutes. And that will give callers a chance to come in. And then maybe another way of trying to reduce that is instead of having all of the open time at the end, like your last block, we should have appointments in every block, and maybe like the last 10 or 15 minutes of that block would be for those that don't have appointments. And this would allow for individuals that don't have an appointment or weren't able to make an appointment because they were full, that they could call in at the different time blocks instead of just at the end, because that might not be convenient for every Californian. But other than that, I mean, just wonderful job. And thank you so much. Yeah, I don't even want to imagine all the work that went into it, but it showed. You guys did an amazing, wonderful job. So thank you.
Trina?
Thank you. First of all, what an amazing team. I feel like we hit the jackpot. You all are amazing. I'm so excited for all of the different piece parts that's already been named. I thought I was so excited and proud for our first meeting, for all of the piece parts that came together with our staff and our line drawers, and of course the commissioners. For those that shared, you all did an amazing job. And so I think what I'd like to add to what's already on our feedback summary, which again, Alvaro, you've done an amazing job pulling it all together, is that I'm thinking, of course, the transition time, but a couple of thoughts. I wondered if we may try on having more videos prepped and ready to go during dead times. And I'm talking about even smaller segment, maybe 3-minute videos, 5-minute, based on what it is we think how much time we need to fill. And the videos, for sure, all of them, I think, should have a banner running at the bottom that's saying we are now accepting public input, and we'll resume in some kind of timer countdown, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, because we don't want someone to dial in and think they've gotten to the wrong place because the videos are running. So something like that. And as ideas and thoughts for videos, I still think that it's important that we help educate California about why congressional districts matter, why Senate assemblies. Maybe the videos can be small segments on what difference it makes for the services or the powers of each of the areas, the district maps that we're going to be drawing maps for. So that could be content that's there. The other piece, let's see. Oh yeah, and I'm signed up for notification also for everything California redistricting. And so I thought that was great that we got some of the notifications that went out, and we probably can do even more of those in our next sessions and just have them pre-scheduled to go out, be it every hour or every hour and a half or something that says, we're still here, we're looking for you. So I wanted to note that. Let's see. No, other than that, everything has been stated. Transition time. No, I think that's what I think those are the extra things that I wanted to say, but just kudos to all and just much appreciation.
Thanks, Trina. Let's see, I don't see any commissioners' hands raised at this point, and I realized I had been remiss. Freddie, dude, sorry. What thoughts, comments, feedback from the communications team?
Oh yeah, I think most of the feedback has already been shared. Just kudos to everyone. Congratulations for the coordination. One big question that did arise during some of our feedback sessions was the opportunity to have both the call-in number and the code accessible to the public prior to the meeting itself. In the case that people wanted to call in and didn't have internet access, it was brought to our attention that some community members actually get the calling code from somebody else who does have internet access, and that's how they call into the meeting. So if we can get a plan or address that issue for future meetings, I think that would be great. And it would make it easy for us to post it on each event page as those events come up so that people know already what number and what code to dial in to be heard.
So you would post that on the website then ahead of time?
Yeah, ideally.
So that could be shared with folks who don't have internet access by folks who do, I guess.
Right. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Freddie. Okay. Thoughts from other commissioners? Are there other feedback that hasn't been brought up? Patricia.
Gracias.
I'm trying.
I thought I wanted to go to the other side of it, the actual input. And something I haven't heard or didn't see on the outreach on just the summary is that we did receive input from every single zone. And I really want to put that up for us to realize that the outreach that we have done had a result, and that that there were some zones that there were some areas that we were like, I don't know if we're going to hear from this, how long it's going to take. But I will say even Zone B, had their call in. So I just think that that's really important for us to keep looking at what are our goals and what we've been wanting to do intentionally. And really, I saw a lot people that I had seen when we did presentations. Yes, the faces looked familiar, and I was like, oh, and I didn't, if they would have been walking down the street, I wouldn't have known who they were. But I was like, when they started speaking, I was like, oh, okay, that's. So I just want to just for all of us to take a deep breath and know that this was the first. That there was a lot of outreach, and most of it was done really by staff. I don't think that I didn't see very much of the networking piece going on where others were retweeting and stuff or sharing it out. There was some of that, but a lot of groups still are trying to figure out, what do we say? How do we say it? And so I added the comments. I kept approaching it as a participant. What would it feel like? What would it look like as a participant? A couple of things is we never got any training or discussed as commissioners. What should our reactions be? Do we just sit there like statues? Do we nod? Do we not nod? And so what ended up happening is people nodded at different times, which is fine. But that's, if someone's a nodder all the time, then that's one thing. But if you only nod when you agree with someone, then you're giving out a huge signal. There was just just some of those things, like how do we ask questions if we needed clarification? I didn't feel like I needed clarification questions at any point. But I was like, why do they keep giving them their numbers? So I was glad that finally that was kind of that the chair said, hey, this is why people are getting their numbers. So that was really helpful. But I did feel I had two screens up as well. It would be helpful to have maybe the paper COI available so people can just open it up and look at it and know how to present their information to us, just to kind of give them or the questions that we have in our presentation. Something that kind of helps someone feel like they can go through a script very easily, be able to give us what a meaningful COI is. I also felt that at the beginning it would have been helpful to introduce all of us and even Katie, and just so that that people were aware of all the commissioners. And that could be that fun video. It doesn't necessarily need to be us speaking. It can just be the video where we go out and come back in. That was created. But I just thought it was great. And that I just kept getting excited about how much input we got from all over California for our first time out, and how diverse the input was, and how much I was learning, even though we weren't traveling or anything. I was joking with Neil that, I grew up in LA and I thought there was one valley, but, thinking back, I'm like, oh yeah, there is Singy, San Fernando, San Gabriel. There are a lot of valleys, but, I grew up during the Valley Girl phase. But so that was just a lot of fun to hear things. And I spent the time our dead air time looking up all the valleys, or looking up, just going deeper on the maps, just to kind of give context. I loved that it was statewide because I didn't know what was coming next, and that was kind of exciting for me. But I do understand the value of having them focused. Great job, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. I think that's a really good observation too, about the fact that we got input from every zone in the state. It's really good. And I was doing the same thing with Google Maps, is looking at the line drawers map, but then also looking at Google Maps and trying to zoom in and see what what the different places were. So I don't know. We haven't heard from Jane or Linda. Did you guys want to share? Jane wants to share.
Sure. Yeah, I'll. First of all, it did go very well. It really did. It was very professional. It was obviously, the amount of prep time to me was incredibly obvious and well done. Well done. And I'm often the harshest critic of us. And I thought that was really, it was really obvious how much work and trying to arrange and going over it and trying to think of any scenarios that could happen and account for those. And kudos to everybody for that. I really, from the bottom of my heart, that's absolutely true. So, very good job. Now, obviously, there were a couple of things that, you sure would have wished that went a little different. And that's obviously what we're what do we do now? How do we proceed? A lot of these ideas we had no idea about until it happened. That I don't know how many people reserved spots and didn't use them. I don't know what we do about that. There are a couple of things I did agree with on. A lot of these little things I had are listed on this the feedback summary, so I'm not going to repeat any of those. There were a couple of things I thought might be a bit helpful. I think I might have typed this into both Isra and Russell. We kept on saying the name of the website for the COI tool, and then we say our website, and those names are sort of similar. And if this is your first time hearing them, you're going to get them confused. So I would like us to sort of say, now remember, our website is this. The COI tool, you can get to that from our website. Rather than repeating kind of both of them, it gets a little confusing. That's a subtle thing in as we're discussing stuff. I thought one comment that would help in pulling up our ideas, we were caught on this a couple of times, is when the speaker is talking and they're talking about San Bernardino, the city, not San Bernardino, the county, and vice versa. Those ideas can, so you're looking for an area and we're all thinking about that area. And then you go, oh, wait a sec. They're talking about the city. They're not talking about the county, or the other way around. And those are issues I thought maybe if there was a bit more time, it's kind of like, the green room before the people go on. I don't know how much we can communicate back and forth with the caller before they come in. If we could use that time to benefit, pulling the maps up, having our location a little bit more organized. It was hard when they'd be talking about a city, but they really were talking about the district. That caught us a couple of times, maybe. And these are finesse points, I think, that actually really brought us all home. Collecting the information, I thought, was the most valuable. And I agree totally with what Commissioner Sinai said. The amount of input and the information I thought was very exciting that we were getting from all the different areas, and the passion you heard in certain people's voices. That was very obvious, which was really nice to hear. I did like the way everything coming across from all the different zones. I thought that was really good. I can really see how having, this is statewide, how it's a little harder to do. But a lot of those areas, like when you said, zone B, it also bled into zone G, which those you want at statewide meetings. And I like the way people were sort of talking about those. And when we go to individual zone areas, I hope that they get publicized across the neighboring zones as well in terms of our outreach. I don't think I have. Those are my couple of comments. And again, I know there's a lot that goes on in the green room and the process part of this. Oh, there's one other thing I thought and this is for communications. Looking through what it says, we lead off with, you don't have to make a reservation to speak at this. Most people don't read any further. They're not going to make a reservation. And then when it was, wait a minute, I have to have a reservation here when they call in, like at the beginning. I'm not quite sure if that's, I thought maybe that was a reason why we didn't get as many people. They might not have completely signed up. I thought, we might change the order of that just a little bit to say the first 2 hours we're prioritizing reservations or appointments and then call in. I thought that could be something. However, the staffing is actually putting that because we were having appointments for convenience sake, which it did say later on, but just that first comment said, you don't have to make a reservation. That was the only thought I had. Otherwise, I liked I'm with Commissioner Turner. I also got all the notifications, which I thought was very helpful. And hey, we're open, give comments now. I like that too. I thought that went well. So those are my comments.
Thanks, Shane. Where does it say you don't need a reservation? I mean, you were referring to somewhere where it says you don't need a reservation to provide input. Where does it say that? I think Freddie's going to respond.
Yeah, it should be on every event page. So if you go to the meetings tab of our website, if you go to a COI meeting, it'll show you input registration and /information. So if you click on that, it'll take you to the event page where you can register for time slot. And we made that statement very bold and at the front because it's in compliance with Bagley-Keene. We have to make it very apparent that you do not need to register to participate in this meeting. And although we are giving those individuals that have registered priority at the beginning, we have to make it very clear that it is not something that's necessary to participate in the meeting. And we also give the option of calling in for that same reason.
Okay, that makes sense. Shane, you good?
Yes, no, I totally understand, and that we want to say that. It's just, we need to finesse us a little tiny bit so people read further, because otherwise they, oh, I didn't even know about appointment systems. What's this? Because most people don't even read emails; they only read the first 2 sentences, and that's it. Even though the bulk of it, everything's right there. You say, would you go back to the email and please read the email? It's the same sort of thing. That's why I thought if we could finesse that, while no reservation is needed, the setup system is a little different. Maybe something like as simple as that. I don't quite know, but that was the idea. I know that the first time I glanced through it, I didn't look further. And I usually read all the way through, so that's why I mentioned that one.
Okay. Well, thanks for that input. Hi, Linda.
Hi there. I guess I'm last. I forgot that this isn't the full commission. I was thinking, it's like, wait. I guess maybe I just want to acknowledge all the work that the staff and the line drawers and the video team did to do a fantastic job. I mean, I just want to echo what everybody else has said. And I think, when things do go so well, all we're left to do is to nitpick the little stuff. So, I just want to say that I think all of the comments that are being given are within that. I think perhaps since Jane just finished off on what she talked about the registration form, maybe Freddie, I'll nitpick on that and I'll just, maybe start from there. My suggestion would be on the registration page, where you have, like, for example, June 19th COI input meeting, you have the time and then watch live and then the call-in number. Perhaps it could say register here, and then it could hyperlink down to the registration page. But then underneath the register here, it could also say registration is not required, because I'll be honest, when I look through it, eyes glaze over, and it's kind of like, okay, you really have to look for it if you don't know. And so there's just a lot of text. So maybe those two things can be up at the top so it's clear, and then people will know that if they want to register, they could. I think a lot of people are used to registering now for these Zoom meetings, and they'll just assume that they just have to sign up. but it also say registration not required. But at least if they click, they could also see that there's a place where they can make an appointment, or you could even put make an appointment here, maybe not register here, make an appointment here rather than register here. So I'll just say that. The only other main thing, I will say I loved hearing all of the input. I mean, it was so different. Everybody had something, different to say, and it was really helpful. I think going into this, I was thinking that we had to, everybody had to give a certain, input in a certain way and a certain kind of input. I think, it was really clear that in hearing all of the different inputs that we heard, everything goes and it actually works. So anybody who's watching now, just imagine just anything can go, like tell us about your communities and obviously, what it also made me realize too is that the more we get, it really is true. I think the more information we get, the better the maps we'll be able to draw because we'll have that greater nuance. For that, so then moving on from that, I think for me, I'm more of a visual person. And so when I'm hearing oral testimony, I having the visual to go along with it is helpful. I will say, Jamie, you did a fantastic job in really getting to the place and getting to perhaps the right level of detail to watch or to understand what the caller was speaking about. So it was really helpful to really understand or to have a better context of what the individual callers were talking about because of your ability to scale down to a level where we can actually see. I will admit that there were times, whether it was you or I think Willie who was doing it, there were times when I wish we could have gone down to a little bit more detail, but just generally speaking, I just want to say that I really appreciated your ability to quickly get to the place. And I'm just wondering to some of the earlier points during the, while the previous caller or the current caller is speaking, I don't know if there's a way to find out from the next caller, to just understand like where they want to speak about so that, for example, I think we had a few people in a row that were talking about the same general area. So instead of going back to the entire map and then going back and focusing in, maybe you could have stayed on that part. So then that way you're not going in and out, and it would have saved some time there as well. That's one idea. The other idea is, and I think it would probably be worse maybe switching off between you and Willie so that then every other one, you could have the maps ready to go and then just, switch off sharing. But I don't know if that will just take up more time doing that. It seems like it might, but just a thought. Yeah, so I think those would be my only other things that I would say that, maybe hasn't been said. So, but fantastic job, everybody. Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that input and thoughts. I'm trying to sort of figure out sort of a balance between, just providing feedback for the staff on items that they can just take away and work, and what we need to bring to the commission on our next meeting. Linda.
Sorry, I forgot one more thing. I wanted to ask, I noticed that we were able to end early. And I know that I was under the impression that we had to, stay on for the entire time. But I don't know if there's some kind of explanation. Should we expect the same thing for the next session also too? And it was interesting that, and I don't know whether or not it was because it was the very first one, but it did seem like at the very beginning we had pretty robust participation, but as it got later, the participation did drop off, and even those who were just listening in also dropped off quite significantly too. So I don't know if that's something to think about as well too, from a timing perspective.
Commissioner Kutagawa, I can answer the ending early question, or at least attempt to. You may recall we had a lot of robust discussion about this back and forth. And for clarity purposes, we have to go by what the motion was at the time. And the motion was to cap individuals at 3 minutes for public input and to also state on the agenda or upon conclusion of business. So with those changes and having that been that motion being approved, these changes were commensurate with that motion being passed.
Anthony, can you also comment on the transition from individuals having multiple opportunities to provide input to one?
Sure. So the Bagley-Keene allows, and this is the basics behind this, or the basis behind this is the ability to, quote, run a meeting, but still to also provide, as the government code states, an opportunity for public to participate. And so without going into long rules of statutory construction, suffice it to say the government code in 1125 1125.7 subdivision B allows a state body to place limits, reasonable limits, on the running of a meeting. And we did that previously with a motion to cap the speaking of an individual at 3 minutes. So in the situation where we have, and then by the way, those limits apply to individual speakers, that's what it's in subdivision B. And so what we had is a situation, and we aren't always going to be able to catch this 100% of the time, but we did have someone who had their 3 minutes and then signed up for another 3 minutes and then another 3 minutes and another 3 minutes and so on and so on and so on. And so while the way it ended up working out was we had a lot of, as has been mentioned, a lot of dead air time. That generally may or may not be the case. And you could very easily run into a situation where someone has had their opportunity under the Bagley-Keene Act to provide public testimony, and it crowds out or prevents others from providing public testimony. And so that's a bit of the rationale behind placing reasonable limits in these sorts of things. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Jane, I think Trina was next, but do you have a follow-up on that? Trina, did you want to follow up on that, or Jane?
Mine was a follow-up on that, but Trina, if you want to go first.
Go ahead and follow up. I have something different.
Okay. I did have a question about that because, what if the person actually was trying to give two different, communities of interest? But I see, the way we really can only say that, they have one time to do it at per meeting, say. But should that be discussed, when we sort of give our instruction at the beginning of a meeting, like now there's one opportunity to talk, you will have the 3 minutes and then you will be cut off. If you have more communities of interest that you have not already, that you want to share with the commission, please, speak of one at this time and put the others through the community of interest tool. Can we add that as part of our description? That way, people would say, well, but I had a whole bunch of communities of interest. So I was trying to sign up for different times. I say, you can only sign up for one, pick which one you want to do and put the others in on the COI tool.
So to that point, Commissioner, we could do that. The caution I would provide there is an individual may wish to speak and be very efficient about doing so in their 3 minutes, talk about 3 different communities of interest, each at 1 minute. And if they want to do it that way, they may arrange their public speech in a different way. And so it really is up to them how they want to orient and what they want to talk about in those 3 minutes. Of course, as you say, the tool is available to submit as many as they would like. So that is also and always an opportunity to submit provide as many submissions as they want without limit. This is, as I mentioned, just a way for the state body to run and efficiently run a public meeting. So we could do that. They just may have different ideas on how they want to allocate their time, their 3 minutes.
Yeah, just a little bit more other than you'll be cut off. Just a little bit more, and then anything else you want to do gives on the COI tool. So we don't just kind of say like, look, that's it, period. We're never going to hear from you again, particularly when we had dead space. It's just that's why, and so just a little bit to make sure people who call in and go, well, boy, they didn't have anyone else talk. What was going on there? I just thought, because there's a real reason why we do it this way. But I thought maybe just a little word for the public's understanding of that.
So Jane, I was just looking at the appointment, where you fill out for an appointment, and they've that text is there. It says you can sign up for 1 appointment per day, per meeting.
Right. Yeah, it's just for the people who are just calling in. And
maybe that can be added to the script.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
At the beginning, yeah,
correct.
That can be done. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you,
Trina.
Yeah, so to work backwards, I'd really want to have, I think, Neil, some more conversation about that. I don't know that I'm in agreement or that people can only or should be only allowed to call in 1 time if they're calling in for different COIs. We have, through our education session, told people that they can submit multiple COIs, and certainly they can use the tool to do that. But we have not set requirements on anyone that they have to use the tool. And if they're calling in for different COI purposes, to submit a different COI, to me, I would really want to keep talking to understand, because right now I'm feeling like they should be able to call in and give a different COI, maybe not call in and continue to elaborate on their same COI. So I'd want to talk about that a little bit more, is the one thing I want to say. The other pieces that I have is just that when we were talking about registration, it just popped into my mind. So just wanted to share, maybe we can just say registration is preferred but not required. That would be able to suffice that part of the conversation. And then I'd taken a note on one of our earlier, I think, prep meetings going into it. I think I'd mentioned Jamie. I was like, oh my goodness, with that hand waving around, it was distracting. I wanted to come back and say, I was looking for that hand waving around. It wasn't at all. So I wanted to just correct that publicly as well. And if I missed it and I was writing and looked up and I'm like, oh God, please wave again. Where are they at? So I just wanted to name that. I love that bringing my attention to the area. So I wanted to, sometimes you don't know till you know. So I wanted to state that. And then the last piece is, this is more of a question for the other commissioners, and then if not, for sure, even the line drawers. I'm recalling some of the testimony where individuals would say that they want to be with a certain, they want to be kept with a certain district outside of theirs, maybe this district instead of that. And in my mind, I'm wondering now, if we are going to be, of course, changing districts, do they want to be with, is it the whole of the district, or is it just certain cities in a certain area or to the left? And so for me, I'm trying to figure out if they're not going to be kept in the whole of the next district. Is it more beneficial for us to start telling people to name the cities or the area or direction that they'd like to be kept with, instead of saying, if I'm in, just making up something, if I'm in District 15, I want to be with what may happen to be next to me, and naming the whole of that district that you want to be with, because that district may no longer exist in its current format. So now what does your testimony mean? So I wanted to just name that and figure out, how do we make sense of that as well?
Linda, I saw you, but I want to ask Karin to comment on that, because that was what I was thinking too, when people are talking about district and we're drawing new districts. So Karin, if you could comment on that.
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. It's an interesting question, and I think it becomes, that specific scenario becomes a little bit more relevant perhaps a little later. So right now it's interesting information that of course we will, take in, write down, note for future reference. I would just like to remind everybody that we don't have the data yet. We have not done a voting rights analysis at this point, so we're not entirely sure what exactly is possible. until we have those two issues, on the table, and we can take a look at them so that we know which way the districts need to move. So at this point, I think, you can ask people, of course, to perhaps focus on their communities of interest. Some people may say they would like to be in a district with other people, and that is how they think of their community of interest. There is just a lot of interpretations out there, and that's all okay. But with respect to what can actually be done about it, at this point, when you say this is my community of interest, what we can do is just draw a polygon so we have it for future reference. And if it can't be turned into a polygon, and a polygon is just a geographic shape, basically, that we can then use to put together with other geographic shapes to build districts. But again, until we have the until we have the data and we've done the VRA analysis, it's all a tiny little bit premature. But again, I think all input is good input. So, come and join us and use the COI tool as much as you can. So I think that's the best message we can give at this moment. And I hope that answered your question, Commissioner Turner.
So, Linda, if you'll indulge me, I have another question for Cara, and I'm sorry, since I have you. So, we heard, for instance, a lot of, so Calabasas came up a few times, and Calabasas some people wanted to be with this other cities and some with other different cities. So you guys all capture this like in a picture for us somehow, so that when we're looking at it, we look at all the different ways people who have an interest in Calabasas would like to see Calabasas connected or something like that.
Thank you for that. Not all of the input that is given can be digitized. So some of the input does get digitized. Other input will be available in other forms. This is where everything kind of comes together with the data management system and the coding system that we're currently developing and implementing for you, so that information that is available in digital form we can display, but then other information, for example, Calabasas should be going north, should be going south, should be going, wherever it should go. That will be available in the data management system, so it can be called up as you need it when you are giving direction for line drawing. For example, you'll say, what have we heard about Calabasas? We go into this data management system, we pull up the comments, and we can go through them, and then you can make a decision about what you would like to do with that particular area. At that point, we could also say, we have some communities of interest within or around Calabasas. Would you like to see them, commissioners? You say yes, we pull them up, and then we take a look at that. So there will be different data points and different ways available by which you can view the information and by which you can organize it and then use it for direction and for line drawing.
Thanks, that's really, really helpful. Linda, thank you for indulging me.
Yeah, no, those were great questions, Neil. And actually, I will admit that now it's given me another question that I want to add to my original question, I guess. I wanted to respond to what Trina was saying about, allowing, people who have more than one COI input to give, to be able to give more than one, to give more than one testimony. I guess I have a question around that, and it's both a process question and it's also I guess it's what do we want to do as a commission? On the one hand, I have no problem if somebody wants to give testimony on multiple COIs where they say, I'm a member of, I'm a part of this COI and I'm also a part of this COI. But from a process point of view, there were some testimonies that were not testimonies, but were more, I don't know, one was a tour, I guess, and the others were more comments. And so, from a process point of view, how would we then deal with those kinds of comments? Or, yeah. And then I have a second question.
So, Commissioner, if I can, I'll take a stab at this and see if I'm able to sort of address that. On the comment versus input, as we previously mentioned, the commission has decided that 3 minutes for public input is what is allowed per speaker, and for public comment would otherwise be 2 minutes. The very tricky part you run into when we allow for both is we want to make sure that we are not regulating content when we're talking about speech. And it's one thing to regulate what I referred to previously as a time, place, manner restriction, where we say 2 minutes for this, 3 minutes for that. It's quite another to prevent speech or cut off speech based on its content. And so my strong caution is that we don't get into the content of what public members are saying and otherwise cut them off based on content, because then that's the state regulating content, which, without going too much into free speech rights, gets into needing a compelling state interest for doing that. And so the time, place, manner restriction, however, is not at that level when you're regulating content. And as I previously mentioned, the basics behind that is not about what the person is saying. It's about making it fair for everybody, regardless of the content, to be able to speak. So that application, that backdrop, that constitutional backdrop gets very tricky when we're saying, well, you're going to talk about 3 COIs and this person's going to talk about 2 COIs. And now we're regulating on content because we're saying, what are you talking about? Well, we're talking about 2 COIs versus 3 COIs. Oh, so you get 3 minutes, but you get 6 minutes. That gets very tricky and very problematic. So I think giving the speaker the flexibility to allow how he or she would like to allocate their time, regardless of the content, is more in tune with a time, place, manner restriction, as opposed to delving and scrutinizing exactly what it is they're talking about, which is content. I hope that helps.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, then we do have to make a choice if we do not want to allow, or I shouldn't say allow, but if we want to be clear that while, for example, multiple COIs would be okay, if that person decides, well, I have the right to utilize multiple time slots because that's what we're allowing everybody to do, then that means that they could just make comments for an additional, 3 minutes or even a third 3 minutes, if that's what we're going to allow, depending on how many, multiple COI inputs we're going to do. And that then if we're going to make it fair, we keep it to the 1 COI testimony per session for the 3 minutes, and it's up to each person, however, whether they want to talk about 1, 2, or 3, or even 6 in that 3 minute time frame that they have.
Correct, because in that application, we are not regulating what they talk about, the content. We are simply providing an outer limit, and they choose what they want to talk about during that time. And that is uniformly applied, no matter whether someone chooses to talk about whatever the content is for that person, and it's applied equally among all public members.
Okay, thank you. And Neil, I had one more question that I wanted to ask, if I could ask that, or should I just?
Yeah, can I just make a comment on this topic real quick though?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to bring that forward. So Anthony, just to give you a heads up, I'm going to bring forward at the next meeting, I'm going to ask you to talk about, the call for going to a single input per person. And as Trina said, we're going to have that discussion as a commission and come to a conclusion on how we want to manage that. The question I have though is, so this time, place, manner restriction, in the context of us allowing COI input and public input at the same time, that seems to me it kind of requires us to give everybody 3 minutes.
So here's what I would say on that point. It is entirely appropriate for public input to be 3 minutes, and separately, the commission has said public comment is 2 minutes. The problem, I think, is one of applicability in that situation. You have to make sure that if we are enforcing a 2-minute public comment, that we're not mistaking that for public input, because then we've cut off someone that has right to 3 minutes. And I don't know how feasible that is to sort of toggle between, oh, this content is 2 minutes, this content is 3 minutes. You don't have a risk of restricting someone's content if, for example, everyone has 3 minutes. You do run that risk if you further delineate between 2 minutes and 3 minutes. You may find, I don't know, this is more of a policy call, how easy that might be to distinguish between whether something is public comment or public input. So I will leave that for you all. But yes, there is a distinction. Public comment is 2 minutes, public input is 3. I just think we would have to be very careful in making sure that we give public input the 3 minutes and not 2 minutes.
Well, I just little expand that a little further. We had in the agenda, the last half hour or whatever was going to be public comment. And if we get to the last half hour that's public comment, at the beginning of that half hour, we could say, okay, public comment is 2 minutes. But I think to be safe, if we're going to be taking public comment during times that we're also taking COI input, we should just give everybody 3, I think is to be safe. But we're gonna come back to this conversation at the next meeting. And so just want to get some clarity. Linda, thank you.
No, thank you. That was helpful. And thank you, Anthony. That was that's all helpful to know. I think this next question is really more for I think the line drawers, Karen and Andrew and Jamie. I'll be honest. I mean, I think for a lot of us, we're all new to this, and obviously we're not professional redistricting experts. I am kind of curious as I was sitting, listening to all of the input, how I think I'm looking for the sausage making part. Like, how are you taking in all of this input? You talked about digitizing some, you also mentioned putting some into the data management system. I think I'm asking partly because I want to understand better. And I'm also asking because I'm sure that members of the public who are also listening are probably curious as well too. So just wanted to ask that question.
Yes, thank you for that question. We'd be happy to walk you through that. Of course, the data management system is not yet active, but once it is active, everything will go into the data management system. So all of the COIs, all of the public input and so forth. And what we did behind the scenes, so to speak, was we had, as you know, Jamie and Willie were the people that were mapping. And then we had 2 junior mappers in the background that were digitizing COIs as they were coming in. We had Andrew and me assisting the mappers on the front line, and then also communicating as necessary with others. And so essentially this was a team of 6 that was working this particular meeting. Then, so there's some things that can be done during the meeting, but then a lot of this gets done before and also after the meeting. You talked about perhaps being able to not take the map down, and if there's information, if there's multiple callers that are talking about a particular area, whether we could keep the map up. Those are the kinds of things that we're trying to work out within the greater team right now, because with the appointment system, one of the benefits, of course, was that we had asked people to please identify the area that they wanted to talk about, but we did not necessarily know who was going to be next. And this is something that we're working with Christian on, and also with Marcy and everybody really, Sulma. And this is a all hands on deck kind of conversation about how to make this happen. Because, if we don't know who is going to be next, and what they were going to talk about, then we by default are going to have to go back to the big map. You know, you don't want to make assumptions, and obviously sometimes people want to start from scratch. So, you know, that's what we defaulted to. But anyway, so some of the prep work beforehand was that Jamie and Willie looked at the reservations or the appointments rather, and then looked at the areas and made sure they knew what was going to come next. That kind of didn't quite work out, but anyway, it worked out sometimes. And then, you know, in the after the meeting, we're actually still working on this. We're having meetings with our junior mapping colleagues to make sure that we have, you know, quality control on how the COIs get digitized, what can be digitized and what can't. And we're also having meetings with Marcy's team to talk about coding going forward, so that we're all on the same page and everybody has the same information and treats it the same way. So there are multiple people that were taking notes. We had access to a preliminary transcript. And then again, Marcy and her team, they were also taking notes, in particular the regional people. So there's a lot of information that was being taken in. We decided that we would err on the side of writing down too much and taking down too much rather than not having enough, in particular for this first meeting. And then as we move forward, we will streamline most likely things a little bit better. But I am envisioning that for, you know, at least statewide meetings, from the line drawing perspective, our team will look pretty much the same, which is, you know, probably, you know, 6 people or so working and supporting each other. And then again, after each meeting, going through, making sure that you know, everything was correctly captured and so forth. And then once we have the data management system, that it gets moved into the data management system in a seamless way, so that everybody can have access to it, and then gets merged with what Marcy's team will have, you know, noted down. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I just want to also again say thank you. I didn't realize that there were 6 people. So, you know, even more kudos to you and your team, and to Marcy's team. Thank you. It sounds like, I thought it was a lot of note taking on my part. I was just thinking you're doing a lot of more note taking on your part too. So thank you.
So Jane, did you have comment? Oh, Marcy, did you want to respond, Marcy?
I think Marcy was going to talk about this.
Just to flag, so that there was, as people with appointments had a unique ID that they were called, and then you heard Katie going through a speaker order number, and so making that clear, that speaker order number is the reference for the public. So when this information is digitized, they will have that as their reference number to go look back on.
Okay, so let's see. We have about 12 minutes till our mandatory break, or 11 at this point. Did you want to talk, Jane?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, I did. Just actually, particularly since Marcy just brought that one up, on the you know, the number assigned to the group, that got a little goofed up, or I was possibly goofed up on that at one point. How do we get that clarified? What number was actually given to which person? Is that coming out on the summary, or you know, we're on our videos? I wasn't quite clear how the commissioners get that information.
So if I could, Jane, I wanted to know, just curious, for what purpose would you need that speaker ID moving forward? Would you be reconciling or looking for that information? Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking. So that speaker ID is only one of the numbers that the individuals will have when they input, or when that information is put into the COI. That is a number that we use behind the scenes to essentially match it with our database entries. So
yeah, no, I mean, I know that, there was a specific, there are several different numbers that were talked about briefly.
Okay.
But then to the public, they were given like number 23, number
Correct.
24, number 36. But then some of those, that number was given out a couple of times, or it got sort of dropped, switched a bit. There's a little short section in there where the number had been repeated already. And so that was why I was wondering,
So if I could,
even for my accounting, I have, so which number did that accounting go to?
sure.
And so that's what I was wondering about.
We have the video, obviously, and the staff is reconciling those numbers and tracking those numbers. And you might have heard a number that was repeated because it was the same caller. So on our end, or the videographer's end, when they were looking at it, we know that's the caller because of the information that they can see. So rather than giving them a new number, they reference the previous number that was issued to them. So it was speaker 10, and they actually got a second turn later on where the numeric, they just went back to the original number. So with the conversation that we've had already in regards to limiting it to one individual, one call, 3 minutes, it should eliminate that issue.
Yeah, that, well, thank you. I'll look at the video for my clarification then. And I did back on that, the 2 minute versus the 3 minute back with Anthony. And I do appreciate that we're going to talk about this at the full commission meeting. But now, Anthony, I want to make sure, there's is it public comment versus public input? And that's actually easy, I think. But the one person, 1 3 minute chunk versus if they have multiple COIs they can talk about multiple times. My understanding is if legally, the way it goes is they're allowed one time at each meeting from Bagley-Keene. And if we open that can of worms, we've opened a big can of worms. Is that sort of what, in terms of, how the legal issue actually lays out? And I just want to clarify on that. Sure, we could make a policy, but I think the preference is just stay with the Bagley-Keene, knowing that, yes, that we don't have to direct the other COIs that a person would like to present. I mean, they can present in their 3 minutes multiple COIs if they can. But in terms of giving them multiple time slots, that we don't necessarily have to go. They have to go to the COI tool. They could call in. They could go to a different meeting. Wasn't that the way? I thought that was a legal interpretation that you were saying, not so much a policy. And possibly
Correct.
I misunderstood.
No, that's correct. So that was just a legal interpretation. My earlier point, I don't know if this is what you're referring to, is providing the public the opportunity on how they want to frame their 3 minutes. Do they want to make their 3 minutes all about one COI and then submit online their ideas for 2 other COIs? Or do they want to do 1 minute each of their 3 minutes, each of one particular community of interest, in providing that flexibility? Again, that's more of the time, place, manner restriction that the state body is applying, rather than, oh, you're talking about one COI, you get 3 minutes, or it's 3 minutes per COI that you're interested in. That's sort of preferring and regulating content, right? Because now, if I have 4 COIs, I can talk about, I get 3 minutes a COI. Now we're regulating content, and that's what we want to avoid. If that answers the question.
Yeah, subtle difference. Thank you.
And thanks. Yeah, we'll continue this conversation and at the next commission meeting. Patricia?
I just had a quick question. Do we know if we had an increase of input with the COI tool during the input session? I mean, did we increase people's awareness, and did people use the COI tool as well? It seemed like some people were struggling with it that spoke, but I was just curious if we received input.
I don't believe we have that information at this point, but we can definitely look into getting some information on whether or not there was an uptick in submissions.
Jane?
I did want to say having the little how to use the Koi tool on the video when we were in the the quote dead air time or whatever. I thought that was really valuable because it repeated several times. I thought that was really well done because we often are getting questions, or I get questions, presentations is okay. Well, now on the Koi they have these specific questions, and I thought that presentation explained several of those points actually rather well. So I thought that was a great idea.
Marion?
One problem I had with that is it was only available to people who were looking at the video feed, right? I was wondering if there was some way that could also be done on the spoken word so that people could listen to it as well as see it.
That's some good feedback for the staff to think about. Thank you. Linda?
This is just to answer Patricia's question. I don't know if it's relevant or if it's a correlation, or I don't know if it can be said that. But on Friday, June 11th, we have on the Koi tool 383 registered users. That's up 59 from the week prior. And we got 323 Koi submissions, which is up 48 from the week prior. And there was one submission that was submitted in Spanish.
Very good. Okay. So we'll see. I think there's a couple of things we're gonna bring forward to the meeting. We're going to bring forward a conversation about allowing individuals just one opportunity per meeting to provide input. And then we're going to talk about the rationale but behind ending early. I think those are two topics that the full commission would want to hear about, at least if not want to discuss. I think we've given the staff a lot of good guidance for them to work through for minor tweaks, as I think we've said. With that, I think if we can, we'll go on. Oh, Jane.
Sorry, I did have one thought on the, which I think might help in the line drawer perspective, possibly on the registration form, where you talk about what is the, excuse me, the community of interest. Number one says begin, you begin with your community or your county or city. You could put in parentheses, if your city has the same name as a county, please state city of, like San Bernardino or San Bernardino County, for example. Because that also happens in Mariposa's, the city of Mariposa. I mean, when you go into, there's, San Francisco is the only one that's city and county, but as you go in different areas, it's a lot. San Bernardino is the one that actually happened in the meeting, but and that would quickly just to say that if we added that little bit of parentheses on that form, I thought might help just quickly.
Okay, Jane, thanks. Do we have time to take public comment before the break, Christian?
I think it'd probably be best to take a break and then get it right when we come back.
Okay, so we'll take the break, and my mouse is gone. We'll be back at 7:15 and take public comment on
I have
agenda item number 3.
I'm sorry, Chair.
What's that?
I'm sorry, Chair. A 15-minute break puts us at 6:45, I think.
Oh yeah, okay. I used to be able to do math. We'll be back at 6:45 and continue on. Thank you all. Okay, well, welcome back. Thank you, everyone. I just, before we go to public comment for agenda item 3, I want to check in. Are there any other items that any of the commissioners want to see brought forward specifically for the full commission to consider? Want me to bring forward? Or the committee to bring forward? Anthony.
Chair, I just would like to make a recommendation, see if the committee thought this would be helpful. Since you mentioned that there are 2 items that were going to be brought forward to the commission, does the chair believe it might be helpful to have a legal memo addressing both of those issues in advance provided to the commission? I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that would be, I think, very helpful. Yes, thank you so much. That would be great. I think that would definitely help the conversation. Thank you. Okay, with that, Katie, can we before we go, I think I want to thank the line drawers for joining us today. I think and really appreciate their participation and feedback. But I don't think we're gonna need you to hang out for the next part of the meeting. But thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Okay, with that, Katie, public comment on agenda item number 3.
Yes, Chair. In order to maximize transparency and public participation in our process, the commissioners will be taking public comment by phone. To call in, dial the telephone number provided on the live stream feed. It is 877-853-5247. When prompted, enter the meeting ID number provided on the live stream feed. It is 998-6619-6806 for this meeting. When prompted to enter a participant ID, simply press the pound key. Once you have dialed in, you'll be placed in a queue. To indicate you wish to comment, please press *9. This will raise your hand for the moderator. When it is your turn to speak, you will hear a message that says the host would like you to talk and to press *6 to speak. If you would like to give your name, please state and spell it for the record. You are not required to provide your name to give public comment. Please make sure to mute your computer or live stream audio to prevent any feedback or distortion during your call. Once you are waiting in the queue, be alert for when it is your turn to speak, and again, please turn down the live stream volume. And I'd like to remind those waiting in the queue, if you would like to give comment at this time, to press *9, indicating you wish to comment on agenda item number 3. And it does not look like we have a raised hand in the queue, Chair.
If you would let us know when the instructions are done, and we'll give it a little more time after that.
And the instructions are complete on the stream.
Okay. Let's see. Wait for a little bit more time. Alvaro has a public comment.
No, not a public comment, but I did want to ask one clarifying question to the chair in regards to adjusting the time frame to allow for more slots, going from the 5 minutes to the 4 minutes. The staff is going to be considering that. I don't know if you want to take that back to the commission as more of an FYI, or if it's something that we need to discuss further.
I was going to bring it back to the commission as an FYI.
Okay.
I think that's a nut and bolt thing, and the transitions. The transitions work so well. I don't think the commission needs to debate on that.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe others have a different thought, but I think that's up to you guys to manage that. And I think it's much better to have more enable more callers.
Sure, and I did want to also mention we do not have a green room. There is no in Zoom. There's no such thing as a green room where we can prep them in anticipation of them coming on board. They're sitting there, and then when we go to them and make them panelists, they're panelists. So there is no communication that can be had prior to them coming on board when they're sitting in the queue. And then lastly, I think this was touched on a little bit. Our staff, as well as the line drawers, are taking notes and are going to be collecting this information. They're also going to be reviewing the tape. the recording to make sure that if they missed anything, that we can capture that information. And then finally, in regards to the speaker ID, we did, I was talking to Katie, and we did go over some numbers. For example, we went from 54 to 56, but that becomes a unique ID. On the back end, our staff is collecting that information. And if necessary, and if interested, we can provide you that information. Thank you.
Okay. Then with that, with no public input on agenda item 3, we will move to agenda item 4. And that is discussion of future meeting dates and agenda items. And so, you know, prior to, you know, the next time we meet, we're going to be having a number of zone-specific public input meetings. I did, you know, Alvaro had mentioned earlier that that the team tried to design the agenda for these meetings to be, you know, kind of universal. But I, you know, I want to check in. Is there anything, Alvaro, Marcy, and team, and with the commissioners, there are other things that we need to be doing a little bit different, to think about a little bit differently when we're doing zone specific input or meetings? I have some ideas, but I want to open it to you guys. Alvaro?
I think one of the ideas that we have discussed is when the chair opens up the meeting, identifying those counties in that outreach zone, so that people are aware that, you know, these are the counties within that zone. Not to say that we're going to exclude anybody from California from participating, but really our outreach, our materials for marketing, our outreach information is going to try to bring in those folks from that particular region, but it's not limiting anyone from calling in or registering either.
So would we, I mean, so one of the thoughts I had is there, I mean, or questions I had, I guess, is there a way to try to focus, like only take appointments from that zone until later, or is that legal?
So is that legal to take appointments from certain zones?
So if we limit it, you know, till, you know, like for the first 2 weeks or something, you know, or for the first 5 days only from that zone, and then the rest of the time the state or something. I don't know if we can do that, if we can do that logistically.
I think you run into some trouble doing that for precisely the reason. I understand the notion is for certain zones, but as the commission has previously, I think, and publicly said, you know, we were inviting public input. Just because it's for a particular zone doesn't mean it has to be for a particular zone. It could be anywhere. And so I think with that, I think we get into regulating that content again. Oh no, you're talking about this zone versus somewhere else. Now that's allowed versus not being allowed, or moving. This is sooner or versus later. What you could do, and we could certainly look at some possibilities. Is there a way to, in some way, agendize it that doesn't unfairly? It still allows everybody, again, to provide the public input regardless of the zone, but perhaps there might be a way to cluster them. I don't know. Is that what you're getting at? Maybe have a certain set time for a particular area, and then everybody else that's not in that zone could also speak, and therefore everybody is able to speak. It's just organized a particular way. Is that kind of what you're driving at?
That's not the approach I was thinking of, but I mean, if that's, you know, a way that we could do this. I think Linda has a comment.
Yeah, and I think it kind of relates to a question that that I got, Commissioner Sadwani and I got around the Orange County public input meeting. That's for Zone J is Orange County. So one of the the contexts that we had spoken to in Orange County asked if they can reserve a block of time for the July 8th meeting so that they can then coordinate the various organizations that fall under their umbrella to give testimony individually on that date versus just individually having them sign up for the appointments and then they'll be all over the place. They were just asking if they could request a block of time, and then that way then they can try to slot all their organizations in under a block of time.
So
it's kind of like the language assistance, right? Like the interpretation request. We've set aside a block of time where we're gonna have the interpretations available. Is that kind of the same kind of concept that maybe Neil suggested?
No, I think those are not the same because the bases for that are different. Language access, I think, is in a different is a different category than, again, kind of the I don't want to call it content, but zone. I mean, you know, we're talking about a sort of arranging a particular zone for content. I'm trying to think of a work with that. I don't. If we for example, for doing a particular block, the thought that comes to mind on that is, are we giving everybody the same chance in providing and reserving a time? I think the answer to that is no in that circumstance. And because I think the answer is no, I would recommend not doing that. I would say another equally viable option is for them to provide one representative and sign and say, or communicate in some way, this is on the basis of 13 people. All 13 people agree that this is the way it should be. And when there's one presenter, that's an option. Another option is for the commission to hear it 13 different times and they strategize and try to pick a block of time, and 13 people can try to provide that. But I would hesitate for the commission to be the one to direct who gets whom at a particular time.
I think Patricia had her hand up.
Yeah, two things. One is I'd like us to really strongly get away. I strongly recommend that we get away from using the language around zones because when we first discussed zones, it was a contentious issue for the public. Some of the public who has followed us kind of understands but we had been very straightforward saying that was only for outreach, that we weren't going to be using it for the input phase. And it's okay that we're organizing ourselves that way, but I want us to be very mindful that it is limiting for others, because if you saw when we got input, we got a lot of input that crossed what we call our zones, and it made sense because counties aren't, counties, you have Riverside has several different counties that it's connecting with and whatnot. And so last time it was a little easier because they would say we're going to be in North San Diego County and people could come in from Riverside or Imperial or wherever. But it is time that we drop kind of saying zones, or say zone A and then list the counties in all our outreach materials and such, because that was a commitment we had made to the public when we first took this on.
Yes, so just to clarify, and I'll get to you, Trina, you're suggesting that we identify the counties is mean, because we are organized by zone, by what we call zone, but you're suggesting that we just, to be clear for the public, that we identify we're focusing on these 6-10 counties or one county, as the case may be.
And we
for
can
this
put
session.
and neighboring counties, and because people, again, you have Orange County, but Orange County, people are going to talk about Orange County with Long Beach or talk about it with Riverside. And so we need to, we were very clear that we were only using this for our outreach. And now that we're going into another phase, we had said that we were going to be as inclusive as possible, and that we were going to talk about counties and not make people feel that we already had preconceived notions of where lines would be. And that's why people didn't like us doing the zones.
Okay, thanks. Trina?
Yeah, I was going to say, I appreciate that, Patricia, but I think maybe even for the lessons learned committee, I think we're too far in. We did state that, we did name that, we did lift that as a possible concern, but our public input meetings are still set up around zones. We're having zone F this time, zone H this time. So we do continue to use that. And we had, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of callers that even said, I'm zone this, so they are identifying with those zones as well. And so, yes, we can list out all counties. I don't know, even for lessons learned for 2030, what would have been an easier way for the division of labor. I think it absolutely worked the way we intended it. And we can say, continue saying that the zones that we've selected remember we went to letters instead of numbers, and we tried on different things, and all of that is just by way of identifying a particular geography region that says we're going to outreach in these areas. Now we're still using regions to say, and this is where we'd prefer you'd call in for your public comment, and we'll take it from anywhere, but we're focusing on these regions. I think at one point I was thinking we should perhaps lose that, but we did not. And so here we are again. I think people are still going to think of them as zones. We just have to think if there's a different way we can clarify that zones are not predetermined, districts or regions or given any preferential treatment. And we can say that all day, and that is our intent, but it will be solidified in some people's mind that there already are some divisions that are there based on or lines that are there based on how we keep talking about it. So not sure what 2030 will do, but for sure we'll probably need to lift up that the pros and cons of doing it the way that we've done it.
Thank you, Trina. Jane.
That actually is an issue that I'm glad you mentioned, Commissioner Turner, to put that on lessons learned, because it's an item that we've grappled with, and I think we'll continue to grapple with. I do like the idea, everything's labeled as zones right now. I really like the idea that we push now. The upcoming meeting is for, the counties that are included in this area and those neighboring counties, because you're right. I can think of several zones that we need to know what are those communities, what are the areas around it, because they will be included or not included. And we heard from some of those in the public input. It was how they crossed over the zone from one zone to the other. So I like that. I want to come back to though things that might be a little different on the script for the zone meeting versus the region meetings versus the state meetings. And that was the idea, which I really like, what these counties are. Also, to discuss the area a little bit. That idea was brought up. It's a very good idea. We hit a really hard, ugly spot a little bit about who does that discussing. And I think that unfortunately was lost. A really good idea of, in this area, it has, these are the counties. It's a mountainous region. It's a valley. It's mostly in, the differences in, it's where the economy is, watersheds are, that sort of thing, because it does make a difference as far as one or the commissioner's perspective. Because, you know, we've really kind of looked at their individual zones and know where we live. But what do we really know about all those other areas? You know, I know that I don't expect that all the commissioners know as much about all the different areas as the ones who are chairing that zone. So I think that little, you know, little bit of an add in the script for the chair or, you know, the chairs, the zone liaisons to discuss that zone, I think would be beneficial. And the same factors could be, the staff could maybe come up with, okay, you know, what are these features? What makes it different? So we'd be a little consistent across that, but I like that idea. So I wanted to bring that back. And I do think that these are changed in the script. The counties named, I would also like to bring that up several times for people who are logging in at different times. Now, the counties in this area are, you know, to repeat that, or if it's on the video screen that the public actually sees, I think that would also be very helpful. Thanks.
Yes, sir. I got you next. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just a general recommendation for process in terms of the agendas for the COI input meetings. I would think it would be nicer if and cleaner if we truncate our agenda to just 3 agenda items: call to order, the welcome and opening remarks, and public input session, and then close off with public comment. And that is because of the need for us to take public comment after each agenda item, and taking public comment for example, the way our agenda sits right now, welcoming and opening remarks or community of interest tool overview might become a little muddy between public comment for that agenda item versus public input testimony. So I just wanted to uplift that as a recommendation for the agendas.
Well, it seems to me that's something that that Marcy and Alvaro can handle. Trina?
Yeah, along those same lines, I've been trying to think about, since the suggestion came up about giving background on each of the areas, which I think would actually be beneficial, but not necessarily tied to a COI input or community of input meeting, because then I think that's where it gets dicey. I wonder if it, just like other trainings that the commission have had, which would still in turn be public, I wonder if there could be a separate meeting time where we take a tour virtually of the state, of different areas. And then it's all done in one setting, not necessarily tied to any one particular public input meeting. Because I'm seeing that if, depending on who does it, et cetera, right before a meeting, it seems like we're focusing in on one particular, I don't know, it seems like to me it may have a different impact, a benefit still, but a different impact if it's just done as this is a statewide tour, a training from a training perspective. We're all from someplace, but we're not all from every place. And so from that perspective, this is California kind of thing. And then if there is an area that we did not hit, highlight, something didn't come through, if a person is then calling in to give public testimony, they could say, you know, and I'm also in, you know, Fresno County, and I didn't see it on the overview you all had a couple of days ago, but we're all this, you know, they can add in something extra if they want to, if they feel like it was left out, because of course we're not going to be able to include every little piece part of every area, but I think high level would probably at least situate us in the different parts of the state and give us some different awareness of what all is in California.
For sure.
2 things. I like those different ideas. I just recommend that the line drawers not be the ones who do it. They did it last time and it was very demographics. I mean, it was very cut and dry. So when the line drawing set started, they just said, this is, yeah, this. So I just recommend that we think through if there's videos already that counties have created, if the I forgot what they're all called, the San Diego Association of Government. There's different government associations. Yeah, there are ways to find those videos, the chambers, whatever. And again, I'm going to bring up that we're living in the world of Zoom, and we're going to need things that ground our memory. If not, what we'll say is, oh yeah, that was the call where that one person called and said, so we don't have that visuals that we usually have. So just something. And so it may be that we do it before, like Trina was saying, we do a virtual tour of California and we just say, remember, this is Gold Rush area, whatever, just ground us in something, but just that idea of grounding it. The other thing I wanted to say was last commission, they allowed elected officials to welcome the commission to their area. I thought that was strange, but I just wanted to bring that up, that did take place in 2010. And so I just want to bring that up. And I did, one of the things I would like, I know that there's recommendations and I'm not sure, everybody gave different comments, but I do feel kind of strongly about making sure that we do introduce all the commissioners, that we don't just jump in to this is what the commission's about, but acknowledge the people that are there and that they are from different parts of the state. And I think Marianne has something.
I was just going to explain a little bit about when the public officials spoke. A lot of the meetings were held in county office buildings or city hall meetings. They were provided free of cost to the commission. When that happened, then the person, the head of that, whatever the organization was given the option of speaking. So it wasn't so much as it was like a thank you to the community for allowing the commission to use the facilities.
Linda?
Actually, what Patricia just said about introducing the commissioners just reminded me of something else that I think might have been part of the feedback that you got, but repeating perhaps either some of the instructions midway through and maybe even doing a repeat of the commissioner introductions might be helpful because people, new people come on at different times. And so it may be helpful to do, a second round of introductions and remind people of instructions and introductions midway through so that anybody who came in either after the first round, will be able to hear some of that. So.
I don't know. I have Trina and Marcy.
I was just going to ask real quick, do we know that someone suggested earlier, I thought great idea to just that video clip that already does the introductions. I don't know if that's a way of saving time. Do we know how long that piece part is? Because that would be easily ran in the beginning and then again midways or what have you. And if it is just something that is quick, succinct, a couple of minutes, that might be a better way to go.
Marcy?
I think that's a great suggestion. I guess before that, just wanting clarity on what else in terms of an introduction. So if we go with that video option, that's great. If not, what, because I think originally we had roll call and then we had introductions and we thought it was repetitive. And so we condensed it into the roll call / introduction. So I think if it's going with the video, that's great. Or hearing what else would be in the introduction so that we can put that into the script.
Patricia?
When watching the 2010, I would have to say that they just went down the dice and each person just said, thank you for having us here, or just said something quickly. And it really made it welcoming. And that, I felt like just a weird interloper kind of at at the session. And like, I didn't, again, we're on Zoom. We don't know how we're supposed to react, all that. But just being able to show the personalities, and that does come out in the videos, but it was just a way, it made it really warm. So yes, it sounds like you're doubling, right? Because you just did roll call, but roll call is so different than each commissioner just saying, hi, I'm so glad to be here, or thank you for having us, or hola, or whatever they want to say.
Okay. So I've got that captured as something to share that we talked about with the full commission and kind of see where they're at. I mean, I could envision us all just going around really quickly. Hi, I'm Neil. I'm from Tracy. Happy to be here, kind of thing, And if we're going to use that video thing, I want to redo my video. If that's my personality, I want to redo my video. So anyway, I'm sorry, I digress. But any other Isra?
Just to respond to some of the thoughts coming out on the introductions piece. So it was, I get it, like we want to introduce ourselves and highlight a little bit more about ourselves, but I think where it became a little bit difficult to proceed with just, hey, my name's Isra and I'm from San Jose, is that I don't represent San Jose. I represent Californians. And I think it came to the point where it's like, we want to be really careful that we don't inadvertently, I know that's not our intention, but inadvertently draw the picture that we are representing a certain region of California versus another region. So I don't know, it was a back and forth. Of course, that might change. We have many, many more COI input meetings to get through. So that obviously might change, but just for the first one, we only have one data point right now, and that's where we landed. So just wanted to share that.
Okay, Tricia?
I'm sure this came back up when it was going back and forth, but there's the other perspective, looking at it as someone out in the community. They're looking to see, hey, do they, where are these folks from? Are they all from Sacramento? And so, that piece is really, that shows just the diversity of who we are. And even if we say hello in different ways, I mean, people are really hungry to know that the commission is different, and just being able to say hello in your name. And maybe we don't say where we are, but we do that already in some ways with our backgrounds, but not everybody, knows where our backgrounds are. And I purposely don't choose a beach scene usually, because I want people to know San Diego is more than a beach. So I understand. I keep joking that please don't introduce me as Patricia from Encinitas, because I'd rather be broader in San Diego County. But I do feel that people are hungry to know that there are representatives from throughout the state, and that it's not a Sacramento.
Okay. Marcy?
Sorry, and so just to piggyback on what Commissioner Ahmad said, that's where we adjusted the script to note, to learn more about commissioners' bios, and tying that in with directing people to the website. And so that was in the script before, to learn more about commissioners and the commission, to visit the website. So we can make sure to highlight that also if we're not going to give location background.
Celia?
And also part of the reason too that in the script we wanted to highlight folks to go to our social media platforms. We have a lot of information, not just about the commissioners. Commissioners are being highlighted individually, but also just general information about redistricting, why redistricting matters, what's a COI tool, a lot of the information that, is important when you're learning to get involved. I mean, people get involved at different stages of this process. So just to kind of see the different type of information. So if people do connect with us on social media, there's a lot of information in addition to learning about the commissioners themselves.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else on this topic that we want to talk about at this point? Okay. Let's see. I think then we've given some feedback. I have a few things to bring forward and report on the zone specific meetings. The next meeting is scheduled for July 6th. And we will have had one statewide and 6 zones. The next meeting of this committee is July 6th. And we will have one statewide and 6 zone-specific public input meetings by then. The agenda is due on the 21st. I was going to, put on the agenda, review feedback for zone-specific public input meetings, and then leave some space for a conversation in light of the governor's announcement that I haven't read in detail, but leave some space in there to begin to talk about how we might transition into in-person meetings. Then the following meeting is scheduled for July 26th. The agenda will be due on the 11th. And we have no meetings that I could find that were scheduled after that. But I propose that when we get to July 6th, we'll have a deeper conversation about where this committee is going to go. How much longer we're going to need to be in existence, I guess. Linda.
Just so that you know, I see that we have a public input meeting scheduled for August 16th. That's the one after the July meeting.
Oh, we did. Okay,
yeah.
I must have missed it. I'm sorry. Okay, so we have another one, but we'll review the July 6th meeting of where we're headed. It sounds like I think we'll have a lot more clarity on what the transition, hopefully, what the transition to hybrid or in-person meetings look like and what we might want to recommend. Jane, you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, you're reading my mind. Yeah, the reason I believe we had the August 16 meeting is because thinking what comes next.
Okay.
Then there were several items in that types of meetings. There was the, when they're doing, group meetings, that sort of thing. That's why I think that meeting was put on the schedule.
Okay, sounds great. Okay. Linda.
Sorry, Jane's question just reminded me of something. So the question, one of the public comments earlier when we started was about the group meetings. Is that for us to decide and discuss, or is that something that we're going to do at the full commission?
Yeah, I think we need to add that to the agenda for the 6th. I'll capture that. Good point. Thank you. Oops. Okay. Well, Patricia.
Does it make any sense for us, if I'm hearing the question, Linda's question, it's the one that's kind of been haunting me, not haunting me, but I've been thinking about often is, when do we, the whole, and this might be part of I always thought that we had left some time at the end for groups to sign up to give us input, but what the groups really do for input is for the line drawing. That's where they want a lot of giving their in, the organizing efforts want to do the line drawing. I'm not sure, we haven't really confirmed it. I guess, are we talking about those last days that we put at the end that we said was for group inputs, if we are going to leave that for community groups or state groups or city groups? Do we as a group, this group, have thoughts that we might want to vet before we go to the full commission, not the full commission.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to jog our memory. So I just pulled it up. On June 2nd, we did approve a schedule that has 4 COI input meetings, and we had labeled it intentionally as COI input meeting, not knowing yet if, to exactly Patricia's question, whether they would be group or some other type of metric. So we have those on the agenda, I'm sorry, on the calendar from September 8th all the way to the 11th.
Yeah, thank you. Kind of my recollection that we had originally noted them in as group input meetings, and then we changed that note and just put them as COI input meetings. But I think it's a decision we need to kind of grapple with as a committee, but also then bring forward a recommendation in discussion with the entire commission. So I'll definitely put that on the agenda for the July 6th meeting.
And Neil, if I could just add, part of that reasoning for setting it later in as late as we could in the month of September was because of the census data. So that was a consideration that we had, and it may still be a consideration because we may not have the census data at that point. If my understanding is correct, we're not going to get the census data. The commission won't get the census data until mid-September. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I think what we were actually kind of looking at was the commission getting the data October 1st kind of time frame, and to put the group meetings last, but put them in early September, and then leave some time at the end of September for us to regroup, if you will, and review COI inputs and prepare, a couple weeks of time to prepare for the beginning of line drawing and looking at the census data. But yeah, maybe the data will come in earlier. Thanks, Alvaro. Marion, and then Jane.
Just to remind you that beginning October 1st, you will not have the option of having the same kind of teleconference meetings you're having now.
Do we know? Okay, that's something we're going to talk about in detail at the next meeting, and it's probably, yeah, we're probably a better place for that conversation at the full commission meeting. So Jane was next.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the statewide issue is an issue that we really need to talk about, in terms of our, because there was feedback like, oh, preferential treatment, these groups are getting, and that's something we really are going to have to talk about.
Yep, absolutely.
And I do have one concern that I kind of want to bring out in the public so everyone can hear this is, I've been listening to some of the groups and how they're doing fantastic outreach, and they're getting great, and they're getting people to give getting their communities of interest. But I'm concerned that the groups are collecting the community of interest from their constituents or their and then creating their maps out of it. But there might be a gap in that. Is this information also being submitted to the commission? I've heard a couple, and I'm not going to name in different groups, but I've heard a couple groups, and they're really good. Now you submit that to the commission, and then you can also submit that locally, that and that sort of thing, which is great. And I haven't quite heard that from everyone. And I just want to make sure, primary source documents, which is the group, the individual communities themselves submitting that, is really important, more so than secondary information.
So Jane, can I interject here? I think we're getting a little off topic, off the agenda on this particular topic, and I think that might be more appropriate for your COI team topic. Am I kind of misinterpreting what you're saying here?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
It's literally from, it affects the issue of public input and our public input meetings. I don't want some groups to think, oh, well, I submitted my information to my larger group, and they're going to present that information on my behalf. And we really want the individual communities to submit their own communities of interest. And that is a subtle thing, but it makes a big difference in terms of what the information the commission gets.
Okay, thanks. Okay, unless there are other comments or input, I'm going to go to public comment at this point. So Katie?
Yes, Chair. Would you like me to read the instructions again or just remind the public? Okay. In order to maximize transparency and public participation in our process, the commissioners will be taking public comment by phone. To call in, dial the telephone number provided on the live stream feed. It is 877-853-5247. When prompted to enter the meeting ID number provided on the live stream feed, it is 998-6619-6806 for this meeting. When prompted to enter a participant ID, simply press the pound key. Once you have dialed in, you will be placed in a queue. To indicate you wish to comment, please press star 9. This will raise your hand for the moderator. When it is your turn to speak, you will hear a message that says the host would like you to talk and to press star 6 to speak. If you would like to give your name, please state and spell it for the record. You are not required to provide your name to give public comment. Please make sure to mute your computer or live stream audio to prevent any feedback or distortion during your call. Once you are waiting in the queue, be alert for when it is your turn to speak, and please turn down the live stream volume. And we do have a caller in the queue with their hand raised. And go ahead, the floor is yours.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. My name is Jimmy Woods Gray. I live in Los Angeles. I just happened to stumble upon your meeting today, and I was concerned about outreach, and I'm not sure how we're getting the message out, because what little information I get, I'm passing it on to different people, and I just happened to stumble upon it. As I said, I decided it was time to look at it. I don't know when the community meetings are. Where do we find out when the community meetings are going to be? And many people are not going to be able to do this Draw My California community who might want to have input. Are you more interested in groups that have professional people who will be able to actually manipulate that system? I think it's important to have, from my experience, is to have information from all constituents in a community, not just from groups. So I don't know if anyone can help me with that. If I can get on a mailing list, then I can help to do some outreach for you. But I don't see anything on social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I haven't seen a thing. And so I thank you very much for the work you're doing. I've been on commissions like this before. It is a lot of work. And I love the idea of you going into the community, whether you divide the commission up and everybody goes into a special community and sees what it looks like. That really makes a difference. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that call. Let's see, I'm going to try to answer most, if not all, of your questions right now. First of all, we have a website, wedrawthelinesca.org.
That's how I stumble upon you.
Okay, so if you go to the meetings tab and click meetings, the meetings tab and click meetings, it will list all the meetings we're having. And if you go down far enough, you'll see the past meetings that we have had. And so that list will tell you all of the public input meetings that we have scheduled so far. As far as community meetings go, at this point, due to COVID, we're not actually going out to the community. We're hosting all these meetings virtually. But our hope is later in the summer, early fall, we will begin to have meetings in the community. But we'll roll those out as we get further guidance from the governor and guidance from specific counties on how we might be able to do that. And we're very much looking forward, all of us, looking forward to getting out and going to the communities and actually seeing the communities. I think that would be very beneficial for us. Let's see, social media. Celia, I'm going to point this at you because I can't remember the handles.
So we are on 5 different platforms on social media. We are on Facebook. You can search for We Draw the Lines CA, and you should pop up. When you do search for it, just to be 100% sure, you can look out for our logo, which is the similar logo that we have on our website and above on some of the images right now. But it is We Draw the Lines CA on all social media platforms, which is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and we're also on YouTube. You can also search
but you're
for.
Not just. Are you advertising on the social media spaces? Advertising,
yes,
or do I have to look? Because people won't know to look. I haven't gotten anything on this. If it was an advertisement, I get tons of advertisements.
So we are working on our advertisement, our paid advertisement. So that should be hopefully. But if you follow us on the website,
really helpful. That would be helpful for people.
But if you do follow us on social media, if we encourage you to share our posts, our links, or anything on your platforms. That way people know to follow us themselves directly. Thank you.
Okay, I will be sharing this with other people because it's important that we have input.
Well, we do appreciate that. And I think that there's, I'm looking for it, and maybe someone can help me here. I thought there was a place on our website where you can go sign up for our email blasts or our email information. Linda seems to be able to point us there.
Yeah, there on our website, there's an area that says sign up. There's I guess, bunch of tabs. Look for sign up. And on there, you could sign up for the e-newsletter. And then you'll also see all of the social media icons. And so you can also click on all those to make sure that you're following us. I think, what shows up on your feed also depends on the algorithms. And I think you might be able to have it so that, our commission posts do show up or have priority. But that goes beyond my capabilities.
Okay, well, thank you. I just hope that the outreach reaches out to so that people, like the radio stations in the neighborhood or special neighborhoods in certain ethnic communities would be able to know that this is happening and it doesn't happen in isolation.
Well, thank you very much.
Concern. Thank you.
We appreciate your input.
Thank you. Thank you. Keep up the good work. It's a lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that was all our public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Linda?
Sorry, I do have a quick question for Marion, and I don't know if this will impact all of us, but Marion, just in terms of the governor's order, if I read everything correctly, starting October 1st, we will have absolutely no option of doing any kind of hybrid should there need to be, given, I think, what Commissioner Vasquez has brought up in the past.
There will not be a solution for Commissioner Vasquez unless there is some further executive order or change in statute, unfortunately. Every location will have to be open to the public. She could still call in as not as a member of the commission, but as a member of the public.
But that's something we'll go into in more detail on Wednesday. Okay, Katie, I guess that was our last caller.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. And at this point, I'm going to adjourn our meeting and we will see everyone on Wednesday.